Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society. If you like the content in our historical videos, please hit the subscribe button or the like button. So today, I thought we'd talk a little bit about Civil War books, or specifically books about the Battle of Gettysburg. You may know that we are actually getting ready to move to our new location soon, and we're just about to pack up our Civil War library. So we thought today we talk a little bit about books that have been written about the Battle of Gettysburg that are in our collection. And because we are the Adams County Historical Society and we've been around for a long time, people who have written books about the battle use our facility as a historical repository, especially when it comes to the town and the citizens that lived in the town at the time of the battle. So I always ask that when an author comes and does research here, that they give us a copy of their book on the subject they've written on. Today, I'm not going to talk about any modern books on the battle. I like to, there's so many books written about the Battle of Gettysburg, and you could spend your life just reading information about the battle, and not read all the books that are available. So people are always asking us in the comments and on our videos and our Facebook posts about books and what books they should read or what books we suggest. So I thought I'd just mention a few that we have in our collection that are valuable for Gettysburg scholars. And now, if you ask people what book you should read on the battle, most people who were historical, let's say, serious historians will tell you to read Edwin Connington's The Gettysburg Campaign. I really don't think that's a place for anyone to start reading about the Battle of Gettysburg. It's a very detailed book. Edwin Connington's book is basically a study of the generals at the Battle of Gettysburg and the decisions that were made by those generals. One really interesting thing about this book is that Connington had access to the John Batchelder research papers in New Hampshire when he wrote it. And he was the first historian to have access to those papers who wrote a book about the Battle of Gettysburg. Of course, today you can buy the Batchelder papers. You can probably get any of these books on used book sites or eBay or Amazon or something like that. But the Batchelder papers have been published, and we can all read the Batchelder papers. So maybe some of the the mystical quality of this book is now not there anymore. But still, Edwin Connington, his analysis of the decisions that were made during the battle is very, very good. But again, that's really heavy reading, and it's not for everyone. I might recommend as a good introduction to the battle, High Tide at Gettysburg by Glenn Tucker. Probably my all-time favorite book about the battle. Glenn Tucker writes really well. He interjects a lot of Southern sources that had not been used prior to him, publishing this book. And it's just really, really enjoyable. You might read They Met at Gettysburg by Edward Stackpole. I think this is the first serious book I ever read about the battle. I was just looking at my paper back copy that I got from the Gettysburg National Military Park in the 1970s, and I think I paid $3.95 for it, and it was a brand new book. They Met at Gettysburg is really good, and it's an overview of the whole battle, and it gives you some insight. If there's any complaint about it, it's the fact that Edward Stackpole himself was a general. And every once in a while in the book, he steps away from being a historian and gives his personal opinion about the mistakes that were made. And some of those are really funny. He hates Longstreet. Whole section about Longstreet and how bad he is. So that's fascinating too. But I tend to enjoy that. For me to really like a book, it doesn't really have to be good. It can be really bad and I still like it. So it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. But some of these older books are fascinating. One of the older books that's a good overview of the battle is Gettysburg, The Pivotal Battle of the Civil War by Robert Beecham. He was a member of the Second Wisconsin and was in the first day's battle. And the first day section of this book is really, really, really good. There's a book, let's see if I can find it real quick, about the first day of the battle by James Knock Polk Scott, The Story of the Battle of Gettysburg. And this is actually a volume just about the first day of the battle, but this guy was a tour guide early on, and it's filled with tour guide stories, like Buford's men having repeating carbines, or the story of the Iron Brigade, and maybe the shoe myth is even in here. But I really enjoy that book too as an early book on the battle. And I think it's valuable to read some of these early interpretations of the fighting to understand where we come up with some of this early material from. And of course, a lot of this material is repeated over and over and over again in books. And you might catch somebody writing a modern analysis of the battle and using one of these old interpretations from one of these previously popular Gettysburg books. But we have lots of them on our shelf I could talk about. And again, I want to stay away from more modern books. But today, there's been more emphasis in breaking down the battle, not writing one overall arching book about the whole Battle of Gettysburg. Obviously, if you write a book about the whole battle, you're sort of the jack of all trades, the master of none. So, today's books, I prefer, David Martin wrote a whole book on July 1st. So did Harry Fonce, or Harry Fonce's books on July 2nd. His book on July 2nd is probably one of the best books out there, just to sit down and read and enjoy. And it's just very well organized and very well written. And it really bases a lot of the chronology on Connington's assessment of the second day in his book. I was going to say that, Jerry Bennett wrote a book about the Gettysburg civilians. And, I don't know, you might not know Jerry Bennett is dead. Most of the people I'm talking about are dead. Of course, Gray Coco died, and he wrote books on the aftermath of the battle that are very popular amongst people to read. Another thing that I want to point out is that there are regimental histories of the units that fought at the battle. And some of these regimental histories have lengthy Gettysburg sections and are worth reading. Of course, many people would point out that you really can't understand the battle unless you read about the units prior to the battle and after the battle, and how the battle affected that unit during the whole war. Obviously, we are here in Gettysburg, and we're obsessed by Gettysburg. So, but it's good to read regimental histories of a whole unit. And we have a pretty good collection of regimental histories, original ones and reprinted ones in our collection. A few of my favorites that I might point out to people when they ask, the history of the 97th New York and the 1st Army Corps and Robinson's Division on Oak Ridge. They have a lengthy Gettysburg section. The history of the 76th New York, that was part of Cutler's Brigade. One of my favorite regimental histories, written pretty closely after the war. The 44th New York, who wrote a book about their time on Little Round Top. Service with the 6th Wisconsin by Rufus Dawes has a lengthy Gettysburg section in it. And the history of the 24th Michigan, if I can see it up here. Let's see, do we have that right here somewhere? Oh, here it is. We have it in red, Osborne. This is an incredible book if you're studying the first day of the battle. But there's lots of them. The history of the 5th New Hampshire Volunteers, Colonel Edward Cross in the wheat field is very good. People love the history of the Pennsylvania Reserves. Most of these regimental histories were written by men who served in the unit. So besides being a really good book that covers a lot of the battle, it's also a firsthand account of the battle in many cases. Sometimes it's a conglomeration of different units and of different people in that unit. the 3rd Pennsylvania Cavalry history or the 17th Pennsylvania Cavalry history are very good. The 118th Pennsylvania, that fought in the wheat field and then on Big Round Top, they have an excellent account of the fighting down there. Of course, we have lots of books here that you might want to get for your library at some point. And you can generally find used the Pennsylvania at Gettysburg that has the dedication ceremonies of all the Pennsylvania monuments during the battle. Or actually, I think we have it on this shelf somewhere. New York at Gettysburg we have. So it has a dedication ceremonies of all the New York monuments, including the speeches given at the dedications. And I wanted to mention that if you're really interested in the battle, I don't know how productive it is to read books written by other people about a subject when you can yourself actually read the accounts of the soldiers. The official reports of the Union and Confederate armies are printed. They were printed in the 1880s, and she can read the words of the commanders of the units themselves instead of reading somebody's interpretation of what they say. The Gettysburg is volume 27. It's part 1, 2, and 3. And this is just part 1. So there's 3 volumes. The Union official reports are in 1 volume. The Confederate official reports are in another volume. And then there's correspondence, messages that were sent back and forth between the different commanders and between the authorities in Washington and Harrisburg and the Army. So, but if you read the official reports of the Union and Confederate armies at the battle, the after action reports, you get a really good idea of how the battle was fought. One last thing we always like to tell people is if you're really interested in a battle, I recommend memorizing the order of battle. If you know what regiments are in which brigades, and which brigades are in which divisions, and which divisions are in which Army Corps, it really helps you understand how the battle flows and how all the units fought with each other. So the order of battle is in most every book, general book on the battle in the back. And you can buy books that just cover the order of battle. And it's the same in all the books. Don't believe when somebody says they have a better or a new improved order of battle. It's the same order of battle. And the order of battle actually comes from the 1880s, the official reports. It's in here. So you can look at the order of battle. And if you just memorize the brigades and whose divisions are in, that really helps you when you're reading books about the battle. Some of the books do a really good job of incorporating that information into their narrative, and some don't. I think one of my favorite books about Pickett's Charge is by George Stewart, and it's sort of a micro history of Pickett's Charge. And it is an incredible book, but he'll give you the names of the soldiers and not tell you what regiment or brigade they're in. So you get sort of a collective experience of Pickett's Charge, but you don't understand where those men are in the specific line of battle. And so you might know that people print out maps or they print out an order of battle. So when they read a book, they can glance down and understand more about where these units are. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, we're just so thrilled that so many people are watching our videos. And if you'd like to, you can share these with your friends.